We are live. Welcome to episode 79. I can't believe we're almost at episode 80 here. Episode 79, Being a Manager Shouldn't Be Shit, Surviving the Middle, with Robyn Wood, who I met because we both talk about middle management stuff, and in our usual sort of like just randomly reaching out to people who talk about the same topic, we ended up meeting and talking, whatever. Lisa is joining us from Cape Town. Lisa, you are our first guest, as we said before the show, from the African continent. And we were so excited.
First to have a swear word in the title. It's awesome.
Oh, yes. Eric's going to have to click that like adult content button or whatever on the YouTube. Anyway, Lisa, we always start off by asking people the same question, which is, what is on your mind?
I thought this was such a good question. It's definitely one of those questions where you think, oh my God, I could really overthink this. But truly what is on my mind is, how can I embrace AI better? And how can I utilize it better to support this incredible group of people that we're talking about, the middle manager layer?
So it's interesting. Did you see, I can't think, it was a Forbes article yesterday. Did you happen to see it? It was like multiple people sent it to me. It was basically like some 30-year-old CEO guy basically saying that AI is going to wipe out the middle, and then the middle is useless because all they do is transmit information from the senior folks to the junior folks, and that's all they do. And therefore, we're just going to replace them all with AI. I have many thoughts on that.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I haven't seen that specific article. Yeah, I haven't seen that specific article, but that sentiment I have heard at least 5 times, I would say, in the last 4 weeks. And I just love that. I mean, I like any of this dramatization kind of disaster notion of AI. It's just going to replace everybody. And it is going to be like, we will be just Will Smiths in the world trying to battle these like AI beings. But I also love that statement, just because it's just such an oversimplification of the middle. But equally, I think that probably sets the tone for exactly the challenges that individuals in this layer experience quite nicely.
Well, and the guy who wrote that needs some more middle managers, is what I think.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Elena.
And coaching.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was fascinating because like I could almost have predicted that he was 30 years old, right? Because all the people that I've ever heard say these things about middle managers don't do anything, they're like, it's like Zuckerberg said something, whatever. They never worked their way through the ranks. They just, they started a company and they won the startup lottery and whatever, and they just jumped over it. And so they don't understand what the middle is supposed to do. And I can guarantee you what they are doing is the thing that leaders do all the time. I call it marionetting, right? They're just trying to control everyone. And so to them, a middle manager is annoying because they can't, I have to pull the middle manager strings to pull the strings of the people under them. And
I have to manage people.
Right. I have to manage people.
They don't like it. Yeah.
So like I said, I have lots of thoughts about that, but I just, so, I mean, actually, I'll just sort of pick up on that conversation. I mean, I think there's probably, as long as I've been in the corporate world, there's been this sort of like cycle of we get rid of everybody in the middle, and then we realize that was a mistake, and then we bring them all back, and then we get rid of them. I mean, have you seen that? And what is your, like, why do people not get what the middle is about?
So to answer the first part of that question, yes, I have seen it many times, and in varying extremes. I've worked in those layers where we've gone from there being not enough of us to suddenly there being too many of us, and both are equally stressful and hard work, I would say. Why don't people get it? Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think when I was in the middle and navigating many of the challenges, of being in the middle. I think my frustration often was that expectation that the middle could, and those who were operating in it, were there to fix and deliver everything single-handedly often. And so there was never that appreciation or acknowledgement that it also required support. And I don't know whether that's because my experience was often in quite traditionally hierarchical corporate systems. And so those of us in that space were fortunate to have worked our way up. You know, I say fortunate, we worked bloody hard for it, but we had worked our way up. We'd been supported to that point in many aspects. We'd had a lot of investment in us in terms of financially, but also from a belief and time perspective. And so I do kind of I got the sense that by the time you're in that space and very much liaising with the execs on a regular basis, the expectation was huge, right? To be extremely capable, to acknowledge that privilege that you'd achieved and that position of responsibility you're now in, to be grateful for the reward that you were getting. None of which is not true, but it's just with this notion of, well, you got here and you're capable and you've got it, so off you crack. You don't need that sort of help or support any longer. And I think that's always been the part for me that I've always just totally not got. And I don't know why individuals in that space are kind of left like that, because then you get that kind of attitude that you were kind of talking about. Fair enough, if that's from a younger generation who've hop, skipped and jumped to the top and haven't experienced it, maybe they don't get it. But I think it's this kind of lack of appreciation that those individuals require support. And when people get frustrated with them very quickly without acknowledging that, I think they just get a little bit left behind.
You know, Lisa, I actually think that going back to AI, with the arrival of AI, middle will need more support. And the reason I'm saying that is because the middle will start working with the mixed human AI teams. So all the issues that we have on the human side now work out what that is going to look like on the other side, and, you know, establish some sort of, you know, ethics and collaboration and correct output across. What do you think on that?
I think that's really interesting. I actually posted on socials this week about how I've been learning about the arrival of the agent bot and how teams of managers will have to start managing teams of bots, essentially, and how we will have a higher expectation for possibly individuals with no management experience at all to essentially start leading people in that sense. And, you know, I think individuals and businesses have always been under pressure to take more autonomy, to be more autonomous, take more responsibility, to think more for themselves, to be more creative. And I think that's a today issue that managers and leaders have about how they engage and support their teams and their individuals. But it's going to be an even bigger requirement if those individuals are now going to be responsible for AI bots and having to run these types of teams. And I think you're right. I think that's going to then put an even bigger pressure and expectation on the middle to really achieve that effectively, so that the AI element does deliver on the expectations of the business and is, you know, creates greater efficiencies and much better outputs. So I totally agree.
It strikes me that this AI thing, I mean, in some ways, the AI thing it's an interesting sort of anthropomorphization of these bots and so forth. But I think I think there's some degree to which that's a little overblown. But I also think there's a factor here where we are sort of infantilizing the middle manager, or even the pre-middle manager, in the sense that we're not giving them sort of the benefit of understanding the complexity so everybody, I guess what I'm trying to say is, everybody is in this AI world, everybody is going to need to make that shift that I always talk about with respect to managers is that your job shifts from doing things to getting things done. And I think that's what we're maybe, in my mind, that's a major shift. I think is that people who won't have the they won't have the resources in their company to manage, actual human individuals will now be managing bots in a way that leads them more towards that getting things done phase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
I think that's really well put. And I love that. Doing things to getting things done. Exactly. And I think if AI is to deliver on what everyone is assuming it will, is fearful of, is excited about, I think everyone's in different camps at the moment, then I think that will be the big shift for everybody. No longer doing things, but getting things done. And that is, I think, a major shift.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
that requires a certain, and this is my point about people treat their workers like they're their kids or something like that. It's like you gotta have to start treating them like they're adult, like everybody's an adult who has to get things.
But then surely that can only be a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
God, the amount of, I think that's most of the challenge a lot of the time, and I talk about it with the leaders I work with, and we talk about how best to lead others and what that involves and the importance of language and the language you choose and the tone you use. And I think already if we, that intention should be there. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges, which is acknowledging that as a leader, your role is to support individuals to thrive. And that requires speaking to them where they are and as an adult, because that is exactly what they are. And if you want really solid, efficient, high-performing output, that's how you talk to people. If you want more challenges, if you want to have people who are overly dependent, who don't have autonomy, who are struggling, who don't develop, keep talking to them like a child. And that will keep them in a childlike regressive state. But then don't be surprised or frustrated.
Well, I like your point about, as we're talking about, I have this analogy I sometimes use when I'm talking to people about situational leadership and that whole model. And what I say to people is, little kids don't like to be constrained, right? They get very upset if you stop, you're holding them and they want to run around or whatever. But they get even more upset if you abandon them, right? If you just walk away. And I would say the vast majority of things that happen that we call toxic work environments are when usually somebody in the middle has been either overly constrained, micromanaged, or completely abandoned and left to their own devices.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And I think that comes back to why being in the middle can be so challenging, because I don't think those who are, if you like, accountable for that layer, and I mean in terms of the C-suite in this context, I think they don't invest enough time to understand the people they have in the middle and appreciate what they do and have that balance right between being available and supportive while still enabling that autonomy. It's either one or the other. And I think I've seen a lot of the abandonment because I think, and I understand it, there is a lot of pressure in the C-suite. It's not that there isn't, but you're still required to manage and lead people. You haven't been absolved of that role because you're in that top. Yes, you have to manage shareholders potentially. Yes, you've got to do a lot more externally. Yes, you might have to even be doing a lot more publicly. I get all of that, but that doesn't change the fact you still are responsible for the leadership of people. It's just a different kind. And I have experienced too often that C-suite can't get that right.
Yeah.
This part of the conversation is a little triggering for me, since I reported to a CEO once who I had a total, I think, of 5, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 minutes of one-on-one time with this person for 2 years that I reported to them. So it's so frustrating that people think I get it. You think you've moved up. You don't have to do the parts you don't like, but that's just totally the opposite. It's the opposite of what,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, to Jeff, to your point earlier, this is a guy who kind of skipped the middle. He was very young when he got, put up, pretty high. So
yeah,
anyway.
and I will say, you run across these certain people who have, like, shooting star skyrocketed right up to the top of their career very, very early, and they are missing something. Like, I just was reading about, I don't know, the CEO of Red Lobster. I don't know if you know, Red Lobster is like a seafood chain here in the US that's basically...
it is as it sounds. It's as obvious as it sounds. Okay, cool. It's not one of these like really exciting new tech startups and we've called ourselves Red Lobster just to be a bit different type thing. No, it is actually a restaurant.
It's a burger joint called Red Lobster. No, just kidding.
They sell pizzas.
No, but anyway, so they have been struggling for years, right? They were sold off by a bigger company at some point. Some external company came in, like, screwed it up, lost a ton of money by giving away way too many shrimp or something. I don't know, something crazy like that. I'm only half kidding. I think that's what happened. They ended up closing a bunch of restaurants there. So they just recently brought in a new CEO of a restaurant company, a national restaurant company, who is 36. And I'm like, he could be the greatest hotshot in the world, but he is not going to understand how to manage this company, because there are things that you can't learn between the age of whatever 24 and 36. Like, you have to go through some of the stuff in the middle. And I think that's one of the things, as we were talking about, like, these, you keep seeing articles like the one I was talking about, or there's the great flattening, the great unbossing. I don't know, they call it all kinds of things in these articles. And I think one of the things that's missing is this idea of, like, you can't train the future layer of leaders if they have to go from managing 0 people to managing a whole company. Like, it doesn't work. And so there's something that has to happen in the middle. And if you lose out on that, then you won't create it. And what you end up with is, and I was actually talking to somebody about this yesterday, what you end up with is a lot of times the person in the middle, or that when you have a senior leadership role, you basically look at your company and say, we have no bench. We have nobody in this company that can do this job. It's like, well, that's because you didn't train anybody to do the job.
Which, by the way, AI is only going to make worse, because it's going to truncate what needs to be done, right, and take away certain precious experience that are learning on the way to be a middle manager, upper middle manager, and the C-suite.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I also think that the other thing around the AI point is just, we are all looking at the world as it is today and saying, what is AI going to do that we are doing now? And the question that I think gets missed is, what will we be doing in 5 years that we aren't doing now? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So tell us, Lisa, the title of this episode is "Being a Manager Shouldn't Be Shit," and that is totally taken from all the language that I see when you post. I love your posts. I always see it's like, I think you use the "shouldn't be" and then the poo emoji, whatever.
My favorite, yeah. It's got a bit out of control, I might add. I'm getting a lot of suggestions for some great branding, like marketing material, and it's all getting a little bit too in the toilet humor category now. But yes, I have essentially commandeered the poo emoji.
So I love that. What is the, like, for you, what was sort of what brought you there? Like, was it your own experience? Was it seeing other people's experience? Was it a mix of both? Like, what got you to that point? You're like, wow, this is something I really want to focus on.
So it was inspired by my own experience. So in 2014, I was operating as a middle manager in a big utilities business in the UK. And I'd worked in that business for a number of years. So I had experienced what we've been talking about, that kind of organic growth in a business, having succeeded in different roles, proven myself, challenged myself, grown, had an incredible opportunity to do all of those things in the constructs of the company. It was a company that really did develop and support people. So I was fortunate in that respect. However, when I got into that middle management layer, initially full of energy, really excited, very passionate, and I did particularly well in that space for at least 18 months, and then transitioned to a different part of the business and found new leadership at that stage, also expanded my role. And I think it was just a combination of all of those factors happening all at once, you know, new line management, new C-suite representative, new location, new people in the team. It was a lot of change. And I really started to struggle in my role, and found it to be a very lonely place when I did. I think I had a lot of shame associated with asking for help, and actually a lot of shame about struggling in the role at the time. And I think it was contributed by the environment, but I think there was also a lot that I was carrying around notions and beliefs of to do well, you have to struggle. To succeed, it has to have been a challenge. Not really allowing myself to just not always be good at something. I think there is an element that was there, and I think it all just took its toll and really started to erode my confidence and my self-belief. So I actually managed to put my own glass ceiling, if you like, above my career at that point, and was like, well, this is as good as you're ever going to be. This is as good as it's ever going to get. You're never going to succeed past this point. And having tried various different things to try and improve my situation, none of which worked, and was feeling pretty terrible. I was feeling shit, actually, let's be frank, and thinking I'm just going to quit. I'm going to leave the company. I was recommended coaching by a family member. So this wasn't driven by the organization, it was driven externally. And after a bit of skepticism, I decided to just give it a try. And coaching for me was completely, in a very cliched sense, it was transformational. There is a reason coaches use that word, because it is true and apt, and we have nothing else to use for it. And one of the realizations I had during that process was coaching is such an incredible tool that leaders have at their disposal to use to really lead people, empower them, to develop people, to create autonomy that I just couldn't do. I didn't know how to do it. I'd never had any formal training at that point in leadership or management. I'd never encountered coaching before, not in a obvious, blatant sense. I actually think in hindsight, I did have a particular leader who I was hugely in awe of, had a lot of respect for, who I think coached me at points. I just didn't know that's what it was. I thought we were just having a really good conversation. And so I decided to train in coaching myself. And it really formed a big part of my leadership brand for a number of years before I decided to go alone and launch my own business. But I think for me, that experience in the middle management layer and finding myself isolated, alone, really struggling, help not being forthcoming. And I did have conversations with individuals. Some were sympathetic, others were quite frankly not. And I think for me, I was disappointed that I'd had such an incredible career to that point and an initial experience of being in that space, and then had kind of been left to, well, nearly drown, I think. And I was like, it shouldn't be like this. Like, it's such a privilege to be in this position of leadership. I have such an incredible opportunity here. I have such a privilege of being responsible for all of these brilliant people and teams and functions and customers and like ability to like experience success, but it's crap and it's unenjoyable and it's actually really affecting my health, and I'm not sleeping and I'm suffering with anxiety. And I was just like, it's not supposed to be like this. Like, and I think that's where it's come from. And that's why I am as passionate about it as I am, because I was there and because I know how coaching helped me to work through all of that and find joy in my career, and the rest is history. But the fact that I did that so solo, and it should never have really got to that point anyway, is what I'm really keen to support others to navigate. I'm not saying it's completely avoidable, because I just think life happens and life is full of shit bits. It's not realistic to say life should always be great and so should work, because it's not going to be. But I think at least in those moments when we are being challenged, when it is a struggle, maybe we are upset, maybe we are anxious, there's a way through it, and it's more obvious than I think how it felt to me at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know, I totally agree with that, and hence that book that's up on my shelf there. Well, I better jump in before we run out of time. I got to jump in because ChatGPT is knocking on the door, asking, wants to ask a couple of questions. I always ask, would you like absurd first or thought-provoking first?
Oh, go with absurd. I like this. Obviously, as the title suggests, I don't take myself very seriously. It's surprising I ever thrived in corporate at all, because I'm not particularly that grey or wooden. But yes, go with the absurd. Let's do it.
All right, absurd. I don't know if nothing's that absurd on my list today, but is there a middle management fantasy camp where you get to resolve fake conflicts and send fake follow-ups, asking for a friend?
No, but maybe we should create it, Jeff. Maybe we should do something.
We're going to get Sally. We're going to get...
I can't see anyone coming to it, to be honest. I think this is one of the harsh truths about a lot of what I do, is that when I'm trying to make what I do fun and humorous, I can see people looking at me like, I'm not going to engage with that on the grounds that when it comes to like anything to do with work, I want to do it at work, and you're trying to get me to like engage and indulge and use my time when it should be my downtime to do fun stuff in inverted commas like this. So I don't think we'd get anyone attending to that particular fun camp, not unless we could get a corporate sponsor. Let's try and get a corporate sponsor.
But then let me ask you a question. Do you think this might be because they assume that they must be miserable in this role, because this is just how it is, right? It is more stress, it's more responsibility, it's more people, so it is what it is. Question mark.
That is a good question, and that surely then says that there's a big market out there for me to go out and help with, to make them all much happier, healthier, fulfilled people. Woo! I just don't think they'd come on a camp.
They don't want to go. We call it a leadership retreat. They'll come.
Yeah, good point. And it's happening on a Thursday, and it's sponsored by your company. They'll come in droves. They'll flock. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they'll be fine.
I will say, and she'll probably kill me for like saying this on the podcast, but I have been talking to my business partner about this idea of like bringing a comedian to train, leaders and middle managers and stand-up comedy, because I do think that could be a really cool way of like getting.
I think that's a great way, but I think you'd have to get the C-suite involved as well. Because come on, there's a lot of wooden characters.
There is a lot of comedy there.
Yeah, there is, Elena. Yeah, probably not the right kind. But yeah,
unintentional comedy for sure.
So, second question for you. I don't know. This one might be absurd as well, but if you had a superpower specific to middle managers, what would it be? A schedule whisperer, buzzword translator, or conflict diffuser? Or you can come up with something else.
Oh God, this is a cracking one.
See, that's thought-provoking. That
is thought-provoking.
Like then I'm like, oh, I did.
I don't know whether I would have a superpower. I mean, buzzword buster is hilarious. I mean, I'm a big fan of corporate bullshit, but that's what used to keep me entertained at work. Listening to what the next absolute nonsense jargon was coming out. That kept things interesting. Conflict diffuser. I wouldn't do that, because I think that comes back to my point about like life is going to have conflict, and I think we learned so much about ourselves through working through conflict and resolving conflict. And I think that's a life experience that I would never take away from anybody. It's not realistic, and conflicts happen because we're not listening properly and we're not talking to each other properly. So like, I'd never take that one away. If I had a superpower, I tell you what, it would probably be, I'm really passionate about this. I'm passionate about people realizing how truly capable they are. And I think that would be the superpower I'd want to have for middle managers, that I could just, I mean, it's what I do in my role, but I would love to be able to do that more instantly and say, you can, that's why you're here. So I think that would probably be my superpower. Sounds a bit cheesy, doesn't it? It's such a coach thing to say. I want people to believe in themselves more, but it is true.
As somebody who coaches somebody all the time, like that is the problem that most people have. They don't believe in themselves.
Plus, we're talking to 3 Americans. We drink this stuff up.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in the right audience.
I want to take the sort of the flip side of that, which is the boss being able to reflect that confidence back on people is really key. And I wrote this down early in the episode, and I didn't want to interrupt ChatGPT earlier to bring it up, but to me, and I always have said that your boss is more important than just about anything about your job. In other words, having a good boss can make to use your term, a shit job better, and it can make the best job in the world a total nightmare. And I have not had a lot of good bosses. I haven't had this one boss who I mentioned before who I didn't talk to at all. Another who talked to me a few more times in the following couple of years, but he once told me that he would be willing to listen more, but he couldn't promise that he would care anymore about what I was doing. Yes, I really had somebody say that.
Flipping heck. That's terrible. Savage.
And then
Just lie, man. Just lie. Or say nothing.
Exactly.
Is what I would
just
say.
Lie to me, pretend you care. But my point is,
or just don't say anything.
The most amazing boss I've ever had, and actually, interestingly, the only woman that I've reported to. So I don't know if there's just some like toxic masculinity thing.
Yeah, there's a problem there.
But she was amazing. Like, this is like her whole thing. Like, she would kind of coach me through things that would have felt like a huge slap in the face, and probably did. But she's like, but here's the opportunity that you can have, that this will free you up from. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but like, just so different to have a good boss. And I don't know, just your thoughts on the boss makes the job kind of thought process.
100. I couldn't agree more. I've had some terrible bosses in my time. Absolutely dreadful. And look, I'm not perfect. I've made some terrible mistakes historically. I'm the first to admit it, and I'm apologetic to everyone who had to go on that learning journey with me as I grew to become a leader, because you got some really shitty times with me, but they were never intentional. It was me trying my best and just getting stuff wrong. And that's all it was. Like, I'm not a bad person. And I think most of us are not bad people. And if we are bad managers, it's because we don't understand how to do better yet.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it is we actually are totally unaware of the impact that we have. We haven't got the self-awareness. We don't have the emotional intelligence. It's not because we're dicks. Like, I don't genuinely think anyone shows up to work going, I'm going to be an asshole today. I don't think that's what they're thinking, but clearly something's not translating correctly. Even with that guy who said to you, I can't promise to care anymore.
Yeah. Well, I actually used to use the term malignant neglect. Like, I never actually ascribed to him like some kind of, it wasn't malice. It was just sort of I just don't give a crap about you and your success.
Yeah. I mean, which is harsh, but like, I don't even know if that's even what he would have meant. It's just the language and the communication is terrible. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think some of my toughest times of my career are linked to who was leading me at the time and how they made me feel. And I've had to like, when I was in the thick of it with those individuals, they were enemy number one, which never helped, obviously. I know. And I think it was only until I started to do more self-exploration, invested more in myself, with coaching, did more reading, did I start to realize how I was adding fuel to the fire of the situation. That actually, yes, they were not doing things well for me personally, but I was then vilifying them further, and I was exaggerating their impact, and I was mismanaging myself. So like, I do think, and I talk about this a lot to those I work with who are in the middle layer and more senior, it is at times an opportunity to think, what do you want to do? How are you going to influence this? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to control the situation? And if you want things to be different, how are you going to support your leader, your manager to change things? You are going to have a difficult conversation with them. You are going to have to be honest and open with them if you want it to change. And those were the conversations I started to have a lot more when I was in my corporate career, which were always with the agenda of, I want to support you to enable me to be better. And surely that's going to be a win-win for both of us. So let's work through this together. Now, obviously, if they then didn't change or didn't do things differently, or they didn't accept that conversation as it was intended, it's time to move on, I think. And that's generally my attitude to these things, but at least I tried. But it is so crucial who your leader is and how they behave towards you. They do make or break you 100%. I do find that it's that way round. I don't think it's your team. Like, you know, I do.
Absolutely.
The responsibility
and you
of
in
the leader
turn
is
being
huge.
being a good boss to your team is the other side of that. Lisa, as much as I'd love to continue this conversation for another hour or two, unfortunately we've come to we've actually quite far past the end of our half an hour, which is all good. But what we like to do before we go is have everybody go around and say one thing they want to leave our audience with. I always make the guests go first. So, just throw you into the fire. So what's one thing, Lisa, that you want to leave our audience with?
I think it really is that being a manager isn't shit. It's not that it shouldn't be, it isn't shit. And if it feels that way for you right now, it's thinking about what one thing can you do to change it for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa, before I jump in with my one thing, what if people want to connect with you, reach out to you, what's the best way for people to get you?
So I am very proactive on LinkedIn for my sins. So that is the best place to find me, I think. So if you look me up, I am Lisa Robyn with a Y, Wood. There is only one of me, I think. So yeah, you'll find me if it's got my tagline underneath it, being a manager shouldn't be shit. That'll be the right place. If you see a poo emoji, it's me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see your content on LinkedIn all the time. It is great. I love it. I think for me, I'm going to pick up on something, and this could probably use this whole other episode, whatever, but you talked about this idea of like people being in middle management roles, feeling shame. And I think I often say to people that I think that it's like actually a form of imposter syndrome, that we don't train you and therefore you think it must be easy. And therefore you feel shame when you can't do it, and you don't want to talk to anyone, ask anybody for help because you're like, I feel stupid. And so I think letting people know that, hey, being a middle leader is hard because you have all these different pressures coming from all the different sides, and then there's nothing to be ashamed of to ask for help or to try and learn. So that's my takeaway. And I will pass it to Elena.
Yes, and I'm going to go back to where we started on AI and note that humans are going to flock even closer together with AI being more active, and working out the human aspect of middle management, which is most of our careers, and most people finish their careers there. So working out the human element of it is becoming more and more critical.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was going to also pick up on that AI piece, and I'm going to go back to the conversation we were having about how AI actually takes this sort of magical break where you're managing, potentially, it depends on how much the anthropomorphization is real, but it takes that break where you go from not managing anybody to managing people. It may actually create a situation where more people are managing, well, in this case, entities that need to do work. So you have to have, and I think that creates a whole new level of complexity. If all your management training is on bots, what is that going to mean when a person starts reporting to you? Are you going to kind of end up in a place where you're better at managing or worse at managing, or maybe some gaps or whatever. So I think that's my one thing. And my sort of 1.5 is how important the boss is, and how important that role that you are playing as the manager of other people are, and how important your manager's role is in making your day go by without it being completely miserable. And I do appreciate, Lisa, the concept of how, and we actually had another guest who was talking about this, like, how do you manage yourself so that your boss will come around and be a better manager to you? So, Lisa, thank you so much. Fantastic discussion. Very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.